When the Great Depression hit America, desperate families turned to an unexpected savior. Forgotten fruits that modern grocery stores have completely erased from our memory. These weren't ordinary backyard plants. They were survival tools that produced food when banks failed and jobs disappeared. While bread lines stretched around city blocks, rural families with these 25 resilient fruits maintained a critical lifeline to nourishment and hope. Let's uncover these forgotten fruits that helped our grandparents survive America's darkest economic chapter. American persimmons. Back in the 1930s, times were tough, but smart families had a secret growing in their yards, the American persimmon. People called it nature's candy, but this fruit was actually worth its weight in gold. Unlike store-bought sugar, American persimmons packed intense, natural sweetness that could flavor breads, puddings, and preserves when sugar was too expensive to buy. What made them even more valuable was their unusual harvest time. These remarkable trees produced their sweet orange fruits after the first frost, providing fresh food when most other fruits were long gone. But here's the best part. Persimmon trees were practically indestructible, surviving drought, poor soil, and neglect, while continuing to produce abundant crops year after year. Families could dry the fruits like dates and store them all winter, creating a sweetener that lasted months without refrigeration. The high vitamin content of persimmons also helped keep families healthy during times when fresh fruit was almost impossible to find. All pawpaws. Speaking of winter food, let me tell you about something that might sound strange today. The pawpaw. Imagine a tropical-tasting fruit with flesh like custard, but one that grew wild in the forests of the eastern United States. These native fruits could reach up to 6 inches long, and during the Depression they were worth their weight in gold. While most people today have never heard of them, pawpaws were amazing because they offered something precious during hard times, a taste of luxury. Families would gather these wild fruits in fall, savoring their unique flavor that reminded them of bananas, mangoes, and pineapples all mixed together. The best part? These fruits grew wild in forests across the eastern United States, requiring no cultivation or care. Their high protein content, up to 7% more than any other fruit, made them particularly valuable during times when meat was scarce. Depression-era families discovered that pawpaw trees grew easily from seed, allowing them to transplant this wild treasure right into their backyard food forests, creating a self-sustaining source of tropical-tasting nutrition during America's hardest times. Mulberries. While pawpaws were the exotic treasure, families had another clever trick up their sleeves: mulberry trees. What made these trees special was their incredible productivity, with a single mature tree producing up to 50 gallons of fruit in a season. During the Depression, mulberries became a family favorite because they were like having a fruit factory in your yard. The trees would drop their sweet berries daily over a 6-week period, providing a steady harvest that could be gathered simply by spreading sheets beneath the branches. Clever families discovered that mulberries were like getting multiple food sources in one. They would eat the fresh berries, preserve them as jam, and even dry them like raisins for winter use. The extra berries fed chickens and pigs, helping to sustain valuable livestock through tough times. What made mulberries truly special was their foolproof nature. They required no spraying, pruning, or special care. While more delicate fruits might fail during drought or poor conditions, mulberry trees thrived, providing reliable food even during the harshest years of the Depression. Ground cherries. Now, if mulberries were productive, ground cherries were pure genius. These plants were like having a candy factory in your garden, producing hundreds of sweet, marble-sized fruits wrapped in their own natural paper husks. Unlike other fruits that needed special storage conditions, ground cherries came in nature's own perfect packaging. The papery husks protected the sweet golden fruits inside, allowing them to store for months without refrigeration. Depression-era children would delight in finding these wrapped candies in the garden, peeling back the paper-like husks to reveal the sweet fruits that tasted like pineapple and vanilla. But here's what made them truly special. Once you planted ground cherries, they came back on their own year after year through self-seeding. During times when seeds were precious and money was scarce, these self-perpetuating plants became more valuable with each passing season. Families discovered they could store ground cherries right in their husks in a cool, dry place where they would remain fresh for months, providing rare sweet treats long after other fruits were gone. Gooseberries. While most berries demanded perfect conditions, Depression-era families grew something much more resilient: gooseberries. These weren't the tame varieties we occasionally find today. These were hardy plants that produced abundantly, even in partial shade, poor soil, and neglected corners of the yard. During the Depression, every part of these plants proved valuable. The tart green berries were harvested early for pies and preserves, while the sweeter purple-red mature fruits provided fresh eating later in the season. This two-stage harvest effectively doubled the yield from each plant. But gooseberries had another trick that made them extra valuable. They could be preserved without sugar. At a time when sugar was often too expensive for families to buy, gooseberries' natural pectin content allowed them to gel into preserves with little or no added sweetener. The best part? These plants lived for decades, growing more productive each year while requiring almost no care. A single row of gooseberry bushes could provide gallons of fruit for years, making them worth their weight in gold during the hardest times of the Depression. American elderberries. After the Great Depression hit, something became more precious than food itself: medicine. That's where elderberry bushes transformed from ordinary plants into family lifesavers. Unlike other fruits that only provided food, elderberries offered something far more valuable: protection against the winter illnesses that could devastate families with no money for doctors. The berries were rich in immune-boosting compounds that helped prevent colds and flu, while the flowers made medicinal tea that reduced fevers. Depression-era families discovered they could make elderberry syrup that preserved the medicinal properties all winter long, providing a crucial defense against illness when medical care was beyond their financial reach. These remarkable bushes grew wild across America, but smart families transplanted them near their homes, creating a reliable pharmacy and food source in one. The abundant berries also made preserves, wine, and even natural dye when store-bought goods were unaffordable. If you're finding this journey through Depression-era fruits valuable, consider supporting us on Patreon. Your membership helps us research and preserve more of this vanishing knowledge while bringing these forgotten fruits back to American gardens. The link to join is in the description below. Every member receives our exclusive seed-saving guide featuring these Depression-era treasures. Currants. During the Depression, keeping children healthy was every parent's greatest worry, and that's where currants proved their tremendous value. These small berries looked humble, but they packed more vitamin C than oranges, up to 4 times more per serving. At a time when citrus fruits were expensive luxury items, currant bushes provided crucial nutrition right in the backyard. Depression-era mothers would make currant preserves to ensure their children had access to immune-boosting vitamin C throughout winter. What made these plants particularly valuable was their incredible productivity in small spaces. A single mature currant bush could produce up to 10 pounds of fruit in just a few square feet, making them perfect for small urban yards during hard times. But currants had another advantage: they thrived in cold northern regions where many other fruits failed. Families from Michigan to Maine relied on these hardy bushes that actually preferred cold winters, producing abundant berries even in the shortest growing seasons. During America's hardest economic times, these vitamin-rich berries kept many northern families healthy when doctor visits were an unaffordable luxury. June berries, service berries. After a long winter with no fresh fruit, the first berries of spring became incredibly precious, and that's where June berries earned their place in Depression-era gardens. These remarkable native fruits appeared weeks before strawberries, providing the first fresh vitamins just when families needed them most. Unlike imported fruits that were too expensive for most families to afford, Juneberry bushes provided free food that grew more abundant each year. The sweet purple berries resembled blueberries in appearance but had a unique almond-like undertone that made them special treats after months of preserved foods. Depression-era families discovered that these native plants were incredibly self-sufficient, requiring no spraying, fertilizing, or special attention, while producing gallons of berries each spring. The bushes grew into beautiful small trees that served double duty, providing both food and ornamental value around modest homes. What made June berries particularly valuable was their reliability. They bloomed late enough to avoid spring frosts while setting fruit even during drought years when other berries failed. During uncertain times, this dependability made them worth their weight in gold to struggling families who couldn't afford crop failures. Huckleberries. While most Americans today have forgotten real huckleberries, Depression-era families relied on these wild fruits that packed more flavor and nutrition than their cultivated cousins. Unlike blueberries that needed acidic soil and special care, native huckleberries grew wild in woods and mountains across America. During the Depression, families would make special trips to gather these intensely flavored berries, often bringing home gallons that would be preserved for winter use. The high antioxidant content, even higher than blueberries, provided crucial health benefits when medical care was unaffordable. What made huckleberries special was their exceptionally long storage life. The thick-skinned berries could be kept fresh for weeks without refrigeration, far longer than more delicate fruits. This allowed families to enjoy fresh berries long after they were harvested. Some resourceful families transplanted wild huckleberry bushes closer to home, creating backyard patches that provided reliable food without cultivation. Though they grew slowly, the bushes would produce for decades, becoming more valuable with each passing year during America's longest economic crisis. Cornelian cherries. When times were tough during the Depression, some immigrants from Eastern Europe introduced Americans to an ancient fruit that had sustained people through hard times for thousands of years. The Cornelian cherry. These small red fruits from the dogwood family weren't actually cherries, but they played a crucial role in Depression-era food security. The tart fruits ripened in late summer, when many other fruits were finished, extending the harvest season by weeks. What made Cornelian cherries especially valuable was their incredible vitamin C content, higher than oranges, providing essential nutrition when scurvy threatened poorly nourished communities. Depression-era families preserved these fruits as jam, juice, and even a substitute for cranberry sauce. The trees were remarkably long-lived, with some specimens producing fruit for over 100 years. During the uncertainty of the Depression, planting something that would feed multiple generations provided both practical food security and emotional comfort to struggling families. Beach plums. While inland families had their fruit strategies, those living near the Atlantic coast relied on a special native fruit, the beach plum. These tough shrubs had mastered the art of growing in sandy, salty conditions where few other food plants could survive. Like a gift from the sea, they provided abundant harvests of small, purple plums that made exceptional preserves. Depression-era families would gather these wild fruits by the bucketful, creating jars of beach plum jelly that became prized items for trading with inland neighbors who couldn't access this coastal treasure. What made beach plums particularly valuable was their natural abundance in seemingly worthless coastal land. Areas too sandy and windswept for traditional farming would produce gallons of these fruits without any cultivation or care. Some forward-thinking families transplanted beach plums to their coastal properties, creating edible hedgerows that provided both food and protection from ocean winds. During America's hardest times, these salt-tolerant fruits turned harsh coastal environments into productive food landscapes that helped many seaside communities survive. Nanking cherries. During the Depression, time was as precious as money, and that's where Nanking cherries proved their worth. In just 2 years, faster than almost any other fruit, a family could go from planting bare shrubs to harvesting gallons of tart sweet cherries. This quick production made them invaluable to displaced families who had lost farms and homes. Even those renting modest houses could plant Nanking cherries with the confidence that they'd harvest fruit before moving on. But speed wasn't their only strength. These hardy bushes laughed at drought, poor soil, and neglect, producing reliable crops even when other fruits failed. The small red cherries ripened in early summer, providing fresh fruit when few other options existed. Depression-era families discovered that Nanking cherries made excellent preserves, juice and wine without requiring the pitting needed for larger cherries. The shrubs also formed living fences that kept livestock out of gardens while providing abundant food from the same space, a critical efficiency during times when every inch of land needed to produce something useful. Meddlers during the Depression, having fresh fruit in winter seemed impossible without refrigeration, but European immigrants brought knowledge of a special fruit that provided a remarkable solution. The medlar. Unlike modern fruits that spoil quickly after harvest, medlars had an unusual quality that Depression-era families found invaluable. The hard fruits would store for months in cool rooms, gradually softening through a process called bletting, until they developed a rich apple butter flavor in the depths of winter. At a time when fresh fruit in January was an unimaginable luxury, medlar trees provided this miracle through their unique ripening process. Families would harvest the fruits after the first frost and store them in straw-lined boxes, checking periodically for perfectly bletted fruits that provided rare winter treats. The trees were exceptionally long-lived, often producing for 50-plus years, and they required almost no care once established. During the uncertainty of the Depression, this reliability and unusual winter harvest made medlar trees particularly valuable to forward-thinking families who planted for long-term food security. Wild black raspberries. While cultivated berries demanded garden space and care, Depression-era families discovered a wild treasure growing in neglected fence rows and woodland edges. Wild black raspberries. These native berries packed more flavor and nutrition than their garden cousins while requiring absolutely no cultivation. During the Depression, children were sent out with pails to gather these wild fruits that grew abundantly in areas considered worthless for farming. A single afternoon of picking could yield gallons of berries that became preserves for winter use. What made these wild berries particularly valuable was their sequential ripening, providing fresh fruit for weeks rather than all at once. Families could harvest daily, enjoying fresh berries while preserving the excess for winter. Some resourceful families transplanted wild canes closer to home, creating productive hedgerows along property lines that defined boundaries while producing food. During America's hardest times, these dual-purpose plantings turned property edges into food-producing assets that required no garden space or special care. Highbush cranberries. When vitamin-rich foods were most needed yet least affordable, Depression-era families in northern states turned to a wild native fruit, the highbush cranberry. Despite the name, these weren't true cranberries, but viburnums that produced brilliant red berries that persisted on branches throughout winter. Unlike fruits that demanded harvest and preservation before frost, highbush cranberries actually improved in flavor after freezing. Families could leave them on the bushes, nature's perfect storage system, harvesting small amounts throughout winter whenever they needed a vitamin C boost. The berries made excellent preserves, sauces, and even cough syrup, providing crucial health benefits when medicine was unaffordable. Depression-era mothers knew that a spoonful of highbush cranberry jelly would provide children with immune-boosting nutrients during vulnerable winter months. These hardy native shrubs thrived in wet areas where other food plants failed, turning soggy spots into productive food landscapes. During the Depression, this ability to produce valuable nutrition from otherwise useless land made highbush cranberries particularly important to rural families with diverse property types. Japanese quince. During the Depression, even ornamental plants had to earn their keep, and that's where Japanese quince bushes showed their hidden value. These common landscape shrubs, planted mainly for their brilliant spring flowers, harbored a secret. Their hard yellow fruits were rich in pectin and flavor. Depression-era homemakers discovered these forgotten fruits, made exceptional jellies and preserves that could stretch expensive sugar further than almost any other fruit. The high pectin content meant even a small amount of quince added to other fruits would create perfect jams with minimal sweetener. What made these plants particularly valuable was their dual purpose in tight spaces. A Japanese quince hedge could define property lines, create privacy, and still produce bushels of useful fruits from the same footprint. Most importantly, these tough shrubs survived complete neglect, continuing to produce both beautiful flowers and useful fruits even when families had no time or resources for garden care. During America's hardest times, these resilient plants kept producing even when totally ignored, providing reliable food from landscape plants that many neighbors grew only for decoration. Buffalo berries. In the Dust Bowl regions where drought destroyed conventional crops, Depression-era families turned to a remarkable native plant, the buffalo berry. These silver-leaved shrubs had mastered the art of producing food with minimal water, offering sweet tart red berries even during the driest years. Unlike orchard fruits that failed during drought, buffalo berries had evolved in the harsh plains environment, developing deep roots that could find moisture even in seemingly hopeless conditions. Families in drought-stricken areas discovered these native plants would produce when nothing else could. The berries appeared silvery on the branches until the first frost, when they turned bright red and sweet. This natural cold storage meant families could harvest at their convenience rather than rushing to preserve fruit before it spoiled. Some Native American tribes had relied on these berries for generations, teaching Depression-era settlers that whipping the berries with sugar created a unique pink foam that would hold its texture for hours, a rare treat during times when desserts were mostly a memory of better days. Mayhaws. While northern states had their berry strategies, southern families during the Depression relied on a special native fruit, the mayhaw. These small tree fruits resembled miniature apples and ripened in May, weeks before most other fruits were available. Growing wild in swampy areas considered worthless for conventional farming, mayhaws provided precious early-season nutrition when winter food stores were depleted and spring gardens weren't yet productive. Depression-era families would wade into swamps to gather these prized fruits for making brilliant red jellies and syrups. What made mayhaws particularly valuable was their unique habitat. They thrived in flooding-prone areas where other food plants would drown. This allowed families to get nutrition from land that couldn't support traditional crops. The resulting bright red jelly became so prized that it transcended its humble origins, becoming a special trade item that even struggling families would save for Christmas gifts or trading for other necessities. During the Depression's darkest days, these swamp treasures provided both essential nutrition and rare moments of sweetness in difficult times. Passion fruits. In the Deep South, Depression-era families discovered a native vine that produced exotic tropical fruits without any special care, the maypop passion flower. These remarkable vines would emerge in spring, quickly covering fences or arbors, and produce hollow, egg-sized fruits by late summer. Unlike many garden plants that demanded good soil and careful tending, maypops thrived in poor conditions, spreading underground and returning stronger each year. The fruits contained tart seed-filled pulp that made exceptional juice, preserves, and flavorings when sugar was available. What made these native passion fruits particularly valuable was their dual harvest. The tender growing tips could be harvested like spinach in spring, while the fruits provided full nutrition, effectively delivering two crops from the same plant. The vines also produced stunning purple flowers that supported native pollinators, indirectly improving yields in vegetable gardens. During America's hardest times, these multi-purpose vines converted unused vertical spaces into productive food landscapes while demanding almost nothing in return. Alpine strawberries, the perpetual berry. While conventional strawberries demanded garden space and produced just one brief harvest, Depression-era European immigrants brought knowledge of a special alternative, alpine strawberries. These remarkable plants produced tiny berries with intense flavor continuously from spring until frost. Unlike their larger cousins, alpine strawberries grew happily in partial shade, allowing families to produce fruit even in less than ideal conditions. The plants formed tidy perennial clumps that expanded each year without the runners that made regular strawberries so invasive. What made these diminutive berries particularly valuable was their extended harvest, providing daily picking for months rather than a single brief flush of fruit. For families struggling to provide fresh food, this reliable daily harvest of vitamin-rich berries helped keep children healthy through summer and fall. The plants were also exceptionally long-lived, with some patches producing for 5 to 7 years without renewal. During the uncertainty of the Depression, this reliability and minimal maintenance made alpine strawberries particularly valuable to families with limited time and resources for garden care. Choke cherries. When vitamin-rich foods were most needed yet least affordable, Native American wisdom led Depression-era families to a remarkable native tree, the choke cherry. These small, dark fruits grew wild across much of North America, producing abundantly with absolutely no human care. Despite their astringent name, choke cherries made exceptional jellies, syrups, and medicinal preparations when properly processed. Depression-era families discovered that cooking the berries with a little sugar transformed their astringency into a rich, cherry-like flavor that children loved. What made choke cherries particularly valuable was their extraordinarily high antioxidant content, among the highest of any North American fruit. This provided crucial health benefits during times when medical care was unaffordable for many families. The trees were incredibly drought-resistant, producing reliable crops even during the Dust Bowl years when other fruits failed entirely. During America's hardest times, these native trees provided free food and medicine from neglected roadsides and woodland edges, helping countless families stay healthy with minimal resources. Barberries. During the Depression, even property boundaries needed to produce something useful, and that's where barberry hedges showed their hidden value. These thorny shrubs, often planted as living fences, harbored a secret. Their small red berries were exceptionally rich in vitamin C. Depression-era families discovered that these bright berries, too tart for fresh eating, made brilliant preserves and medicinal syrups that helped prevent scurvy during winter months when fresh fruit was unavailable. The high pectin content meant they required less sugar than many other fruits when making preserves. What made barberries particularly valuable was their dual purpose. The thorny nature of the bushes created effective barriers that kept livestock out of gardens, while simultaneously producing nutritious berries from the same space, a critical efficiency during times when every planting needed multiple functions. Some immigrant families from Eastern Europe knew that the young leaves could also be harvested in spring and added to soups for additional vitamins, effectively providing 2 crops from a plant that most people grew only as a fence. Crab apples. While modern orchards focus on large dessert apples, Depression-era families relied on something far more resilient: crabapple trees. These tough relatives of eating apples produced prolifically even with total neglect, providing crucial food security during uncertain times. Unlike their fussy orchard cousins that demanded spraying and pruning, crabapples required almost no care while remaining productive for decades. The small, tart fruits weren't ideal for fresh eating but made exceptional preserves, pectin for other jellies, and vinegar when times were tough. What made crabapples particularly valuable was their incredible reliability. They bloomed later than standard apples, avoiding late frosts, and their natural disease resistance meant crops succeeded even without expensive sprays or special knowledge. Depression-era mothers discovered that adding a few crabapples to any fruit preserve would ensure perfect gelling without purchased pectin. This insurance policy role made crabapple trees essential to home food preservation when every jar needed to set properly because nobody could afford failed batches. The wood from pruned branches also served multiple purposes during tough times. The dense, fine-grained branches were carved into tool handles, toys for children, and even cooking utensils. Nothing went to waste in Depression-era households, and crabapple trees provided both food and crafting materials from the same plant. Many families planted crabapples specifically as windbreaks around more delicate garden plants, creating protective barriers that also produced food. The fragrant spring blossoms also supported honeybees, helping to pollinate the entire garden while potentially providing honey if families kept hives. Some varieties, like the Dolgo crabapple, produced fruits large enough to be quartered and dried like apple rings, creating winter treats that required no sugar at all. During America's hardest times, these multi-purpose trees earned their place in nearly every rural yard, silently providing security through their incredible resilience and versatility. Autumn olives. During the Depression, every plant needed multiple purposes, and that's where autumn olive shrubs truly excelled. These remarkable plants didn't just produce food, they actually improved the soil they grew in through nitrogen fixation, making nearby plants more productive too. The silvery-leaved shrubs produced incredible quantities of small red berries in fall, up to 80 pounds per mature plant, providing vitamin-rich food when most other fruits were finished. Depression-era families discovered the tart sweet berries made excellent preserves, juices, and leathers that stored well for winter. What made autumn olives particularly valuable was their ability to thrive in the poorest soils, even growing in gravel or clay where other food plants failed. This allowed families to produce food from land considered worthless for conventional crops. The plants spread readily through bird-dispersed seeds, turning a single bush into a productive thicket within a few years. During the Depression's darkest days, these self-propagating food plants created expanding food security with almost no effort from struggling families. Their dense growth pattern made autumn olives perfect for creating living fences and windbreaks that defined property lines while producing food from spaces that would otherwise go unused. The thick growth also provided shelter for beneficial wildlife and birds that helped control garden pests naturally. The berries themselves had remarkable nutritional properties unknown during the Depression, but scientifically verified today. They contain 17 times more lycopene than tomatoes, offering powerful antioxidant protection. This explains why families who consumed these berries regularly often showed unexpected resilience to common illness. Another hidden benefit was the plant's deep root systems that prevented erosion on hillsides too steep for conventional farming. During the Dust Bowl years, families who had established autumn olive hedgerows watched as their soil stayed in place while neighboring farms blew away. These tough shrubs quite literally held small family farms together during America's most challenging environmental disaster. Rhubarb. While most fruits demanded annual replanting or careful tending, Depression-era families relied on an incredibly durable perennial, rhubarb. Once established, these plants returned year after year, often producing for 20-plus years with almost no care. What made rhubarb particularly valuable during the Depression was its extremely early harvest. The tart stems emerged weeks before any other fruits were available, providing much-needed vitamin C after winter, when families were most vulnerable to nutritional deficiencies. Depression-era homemakers discovered endless uses for this versatile plant, creating pies, sauces, wines, and even medicinal tonics from the abundant stems. When sugar was scarce, rhubarb could be combined with sweeter fruits like strawberries to reduce the sweetener needed. Most importantly, rhubarb thrived on neglect, producing abundant harvests even during years when families had no time or resources for garden care. During America's hardest times, these self-sufficient plants continued providing food when other garden efforts failed, earning rhubarb a special place in Depression-era food security. The massive leaves, though toxic for eating, served practical purposes as well. Laid flat, they made perfect wrapping material for butter in the days before refrigeration, their natural acids helping to preserve dairy products during transport to market. Some families used the huge leaves as temporary sun hats while working in summer gardens, or as natural umbrellas during surprise spring showers. Rhubarb also played a crucial medicinal role during the Depression. Its roots were dried and prepared as a gentle digestive remedy, helping families treat constipation without expensive pharmacy medications. The stems contained valuable calcium and potassium that helped prevent nutritional deficiencies when dairy products were scarce. Perhaps most impressive was rhubarb's ability to signal the changing seasons. Families knew that when the first rhubarb crowns pushed through the soil, it was time to prepare garden beds for spring planting. This natural calendar helped coordinate garden efforts during a time when few families owned proper almanacs or farming guides. The plant's predictable growth patterns provided structure during uncertain times, allowing families to plan their food production precisely when planning was most critical to survival. During the darkest years of the Depression, a single established rhubarb patch could produce 20 to 30 pounds of stems annually without fertilizer or special care, enough to create dozens of preserves that brightened winter meals when fresh food was merely a memory. This incredible productivity from minimal effort made rhubarb not just a food plant but a Depression-era icon of resilience. These 25 fruits aren't just plants, they're survival tools that helped families through America's toughest times. Each one was chosen for its ability to provide reliable food when it mattered most. Today, many of these varieties still exist, preserved by dedicated growers who understand their timeless value. If you found this journey through Depression-era fruit gardening valuable, hit that like button and subscribe for more forgotten wisdom from the past. Which of these fruits surprised you the most? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Until next time, when we'll uncover more survival lessons from our ancestors,